few years ago, after I quit my job and decided to go self-employed or freelance or whatever you want to call it, I fell into the trap of trying to start something, a bit of a hustle, which I still think it was a great idea, but and it was to do with mindset, but it was with the mind. I was doing it with a mindset of in work mode. And it was sort of like how to start something and then grow it. It was a bit of a sort of fun concept, but I was kind of way too serious about the whole thing and sort of setting it up. It wasn't really where my head was at that time or where it should have been, and it was only through some fairly grumpy and anxiety filled days, weeks, even months that I started to see that. I mentioned that I still think the idea is great, and I do. The idea was about mindset. So what I did with a sort of massive inspirational push from my partner was to sort of flip the idea around and do it in a way that was much more fun and involved a bunch of people that I've been listening to since I was a kid, just talking to musicians about their mindset and how they've navigated their way through life. Everything sort of evolved into this podcast. And if this isn't fun, then I'll go and stand on the naughty set reserved for the sort of the big fibbers. My wonderful guest today, if my dodgy research just for once doesn't let me down, have their own stories around serious and fun and how those two things sort of play out for our own creativity and sanity. They've just released their latest single, which is called Heartbreaker, which is really just like this magnificent slice of 60s nostalgic lo-fi pop, and I've just got the perfect soundtrack to it. So it's a pleasure to welcome Ann Tong and Bryce Barton of Chinese American Bear to the show. Welcome, guys. Really nice to see you.
Thank you so
You too.
much.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Well, like we were saying just before we started recording, thanks for getting up at 7 a.m. your time and accommodating my mid-afternoon slow flight.
Of course.
Yeah.
We're pretty early risers
Yes.
anyway, so it's good.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned the soundtrack, so I was listening to Heartbreaker, and I was like, right, something just sort of came to me, and it was, I don't know if you ever saw, there was a TV series which I think internationally it sort of came out on Netflix. It was originally on Channel 4 here in the UK, and it was called The End of the Fucking World. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Oh,
That sounds really
yeah,
familiar.
I definitely remember it coming out.
That
for
sounds
sure.
really familiar. Yeah.
It was a sort of dark comedy, British dark comedy.
Yeah.
Is it not like zombie apocalypse?
No, it was based. Although
okay.
it did feel like it sometimes. It's based on the sort of comics of Charles Forsman, who's like a US sort of comic writer, and it's really this kind of love story between two teenagers who are definitely at the sort of the psychopathic end of the scale, and it was really sort of like it was just brilliant. It was so good. It was like these two teenagers falling in love, and there was just all this stuff going on in their relationship. And the reason I thought of your song was that it really sort of fit with. I mean, Graham Coxon from Blur actually sort of put the soundtrack together, and it had kind of stuff like Francoise Hardy, Nancy Wilson. It was very sort of classic, and it was your song. Like I thought, like on the face of it, your song is so sort of beautiful and just like like a loving song, but there are just little nuances in it that give it a little sinister sort of vibe. And it just came to me about that soundtrack.
Yeah,
I just thought, oh my god, this would just be perfect for it. Where they're going on this road trip and just kind of like mashing people up and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I totally love that. Actually, I think I saw the trailer for that. Yeah.
It's really. I think they did 2 seasons. It's really great. It's well worth watching for sure. But
Nice.
I mean, I love that your music can be as sort of versatile for for kind of like sort of like album work as well as kind of soundtrack work.
Yeah.
So you got a new album announced as well. I think you've just announced new album coming out.
Yes.
Yes, wah.
Yes, it'll be our
Wow.
second.
Yeah, the second one, yeah. So
Yeah,
how are you feeling about that?
really
Feeling great,
excited.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're so excited to be working with Moshi Moshi.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, they've been so nice to work with, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're yeah, doing a lot for us. So it's
Mm,
been nice. You know, we're so used to kind of DIYing even
yeah.
more of the like marketing end of things, or I guess business end of things. And so it's been nice to have someone working more on that end, and
Definitely.
we can kind of
Yeah.
focus on our end. So
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Was this a sort of like a conscious decision to, sort of find a label that sort of fitted your ethos now?
Yeah, no, this whole band has been,
A joke.
yeah, it started off as a joke. Like,
One giant joke gone wrong or gone right.
yeah, like, everything that's happened has been very unexpected. Like, our very first album, I mean, we didn't even set out to make an album when we first started this band. It was
Yeah.
really just, Bryce pulling me into, this world that he's in, because the rock music world is very new to me.
Yeah.
I grew up classically trained
Mm,
pianist, and so yeah, very different music background. And then just a few years ago, he was looking for like a new music project. We had made a big move, left New York, so he was looking at like he left this very serious band. He was in New York, and then
mm,
looking for his next thing. And I was teaching him how to speak Mandarin at the time.
yeah.
My parents are immigrants, and he wanted to write some music using Mandarin. And so I was helping him write lyrics because he just thought the sounds were cool sounding. And then he was like, "Well, why don't you sing with these?" Like on this, why don't you sing because you pronounce this better? And I was like, okay. My only experience with singing is like karaoke.
Wow.
And so actually it's funny because when he first started recording me and I really had no singing training, he would always be like, "You like stop sounding like you're on karaoke. You have to back off."
Yeah.
And sometimes that still sneaks in. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
like, I know you want to be
Yeah.
on karaoke
That's
right
that
now.
karaoke voice, yeah.
Yeah. Back away.
You can kind of spot it. It's like, no, no, no,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not allowed to go
going
there.
right
Yeah.
yeah.
You're pushing too hard again.
Yeah, it was really, yeah, just I mean, the first song that we wrote, Xiaoxian, just called Little Bear,
Mm,
is just like it's such a silly, wacky little song, and,
And very different from the music that you were writing. Like you just wanted like you almost wanted like
yeah,
a
I think
palate cleanser.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was, like, really kind of in, like, a weird place, kind of
Yeah.
distraught,
yeah.
Yeah.
a little bit lost feeling, and,
Yeah. Yeah. He was struggling mentally.
yeah, so I think I was looking for some freedom in
Mm,
my my work and my process. I think I for like years I kind of, speaking of mindset, like was I was just like kind of a very serious musician, you know, and thought
yeah.
that I needed to be
Mhm.
serious in order to find success, and then I think that fed into some bit of perfectionism,
Mm,
and
Maybe took it too seriously.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like just I feel like I had so many rules for myself, and how
mm,
things needed to be sound in order to fit the to fit success, or to fit
Figure
yeah.
out. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, so I think this band, when it started, was just like an attempt to escape that, and I think it proved has proved more successful, both like I think outwardly successful, but also like just personally for myself, like
Mm,
More
the
fulfilling.
satisfaction and yeah fulfillment it gives me is just so much
yeah.
higher, because I think I'm just enjoying it and having
Yeah.
fun.
And like giving yourself permission to enjoy it. I think he's done
True.
that.
I think this is. I mean, I guess this is what I was sort of alluding to in the intro about. I mean, I totally hear you. I mean, just from my own point of view, in what I was doing, yeah, everything sort of felt very, yeah, very sort of serious. Even though I sort of quit my job and was going to do this thing, and it all sounded great, and then sort of sat back and it just wasn't doing it. It's like, have I quit my job to sort of do this? really, and it's like, and you're right, and I think, and it made me think, yeah, about sort of giving yourself permission. It's really hard, isn't it, when
Is.
we I always think back to like when we're kids, that there's, well, certainly I had some, kind of freedom, and there's the sort of fun element of being a kid, and then getting to school, then you get into like the system, and it tends to sort of kick that out of you, and then if it becomes
Mhm.
serious about getting your exams, and then you're going
Yeah.
into the adult world, and it all becomes very serious, and then we lose all humor and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's so true. It's
You lose
it's
that playfulness, you become more
The
jaded,
playfulness.
yeah, more jaded, more yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and then I feel like even becoming an adult and, there's a lot of pressures to find your own success, and
Yeah,
that almost shackles you more.
And a specific definition of success. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true.
because I mean, I think in its own right, making an album and just getting it done and putting it out is a very big success in my mind, for any band out
Absolutely.
there.
Like regardless
Regardless,
of the response. Yeah.
like
Yeah,
so many artists I know that they have trouble just kind of getting their work done. I think finishing work and putting it out is its own success, and we forget that. And
how were you able to, kind of define your own success? Because it's quite a hard thing to do, isn't it? You can talk about it, but then getting it really straight in your own mind, and you know and actually doing it and believing it is a kind of different, well, at least I've found that can be a difficult thing to do.
yeah, I find it to be really difficult too.
I
Um,
think for you I think for you it's when you were like, okay, if I think about um in 10, 20 years, by the time I'm 40, I'm 50, and you
Mm,
still haven't achieved like commercial success, would you still be doing this every day?
yeah,
Like you were thinking that
yeah,
in
yeah,
your
yeah.
mind.
I
Yeah.
do remember that.
mm,
Which the answer is yes. I would still be doing this. So that kind of, it makes me feel better about the whole thing. And honestly, I
yeah.
think this sounds really sad, but I promise it's not. But I think in a lot of ways, like I gave up on the idea of success.
Mm.
It's
Traditional
traditional
success.
success. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I
I would
hear you.
like that.
Mhm.
I think that yeah, that was like a big turning point for me personally, and I guess mentally,
Mm,
was kind of giving up on this thing because it did feel like it was kind of holding me down. And but it does creep in, kind of like you're saying, it is still difficult
yeah.
to not think about and not let creep back in, and kind of stand on my shoulder and be like, you're not good enough.
Mhm.
I guess we all kind of, the I mean, generally in sort of society, it's around, doing anything is about, success is how big you can grow, and it's nuts. It's really just sort of insane. I mean, that, it's just insane how that kind of
Sure.
pervades, and the negativity that it eventually breeds. And this is where I get on my high horse and start to sort of preach about, about the wrongs of capitalism and stuff like that. This is kind of what it leads to. But I think that, this is sort of almost like an obsession with growth as being the kind of the barometer of how successful you are. I don't know. It's not. It doesn't feel right.
Totally. And now I mean, we have so many numbers to look at too now, that
So many
we
metrics.
have
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's like this component where it feels like a fact or set in stone. If you don't have X numbers, you're
Mm,
not good enough. I wonder if at some, back in the day, I mean, I guess they've always had numbers, so
yeah.
just not as many.
Just more
I
of
don't
them
think
now.
Yeah, just more data
Just a
no,
lot
points.
more.
and also it's more available for everyone to see, and so it's like
So, yeah.
True.
it's like we can, open up any band on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, and so like it's sometimes
Yeah.
hard not to compare your numbers to other people's numbers, and it's
Very
just
difficult.
yeah, and so yeah, always trying to focus on just our own journey, but it's
On
yeah,
your own journey.
yeah, but it's really hard to
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
information is so available for everyone.
Because, like, Anne, you're going back to your childhood, but I think which if what I understand is right, it was sort of quite restrictive when you were a kid and sort of growing up. I mean,
Yes.
how has that sort of played out for you? Because I as I've got older, I've sort of looked back at some things that I remember from my childhood. I think you just sort of naturally do that, and there are things that really sort of stick out for me, and things that happened to me when I was a kid that I think have sort of started to have formed who I am now, and still kind of stick with me.
Yeah.
So I'm just sort of interested in how that has sort of everything that as you were growing up, how that sort of played out for you now.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I mentioned earlier, my parents are immigrants from China.
Mm,
Uh, and so it was, yeah, I was like raised with very traditional Chinese values, but in like a
yeah,
Western setting. And so always felt like a little different from my classmates. Like my household was always so much more strict
yeah,
than my roommates, and just the way my parents were so laser focused on academics. Um, because in China, like education really is like the primary thing that contributes to your success, but it's not like that in the West. There's so many more
yeah,
components to a person's development. It's a little bit more well-rounded, in my opinion. In
mm,
the States, I felt like my parents it's not their fault, they just didn't know,
yeah,
but as a result of their own upbringing, the way they raised me was, I just felt like I did not have an example of how to, communicate in the Western way or build relationships in the States.
mm, mm,
So I was extremely socially awkward as a result.
mm,
Kind of, really wasn't taught a lot of, like, Western social etiquette, social rules, when I was growing up. Really just knew how to study and take tests and play piano.
yeah.
So I felt
Good.
yeah. So, like,
I think I
right.
was the same as well. To be fair,
But
still
I think
struggling with it.
but, like, oh my gosh, like, oh, it's horrible. So we met in high school, and Bryce can tell
Mm.
you how weird I was in high
You
school.
weren't. You were. I mean,
I was pretty
I was weird in my own
yeah,
way.
but
But you were. You
I
were.
think I was next
You were.
another level. I
We've
just
got a
I
good
was
honesty bucket going on here, haven't we?
I just was just really odd.
Yeah, you were just kind of awkward.
Extremely.
Yeah, and I mean, like
Um,
Yeah,
so many kids are,
yeah,
awkward at that
yeah,
stage, but you were particularly.
particularly. Really didn't have friends in high school.
mm,
I was that kid that, like, just sat by myself at lunch or, like, go to the library at lunchtime.
mm,
Um, and then in college, like, very lonely. It was a very lonely, like, teenage experience for me. Like, I did not
mm,
have a good time. I would not wanna revisit high school.
yeah,
And then in college, um, like, this was my first time away from my parents, and I remember thinking, like, okay, everybody seems to, like, know this language that I don't. It just felt like oftentimes a lot of things would go over my head, or
mm,
I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to, like, make friends and, like, do
right,
this thing. So I very actively, like, starting from college in my 20s, very consciously, like, worked on my social skills. Like, I read books. Like, there's this book called, like, How to Make Friends and Influence People by
oh
Dale
yeah, yeah,
Carnegie. Yeah. So I
yeah,
would, like, read books like that, and yeah, just be very conscious about kind of mimicking others too. Like, if I saw someone that was really charming or like very easy in a social situation, I try to, like,
mm,
see what they're doing. And
mm,
anyway, so yeah, because it was like a very lonely,
mm,
teenage experience, and yeah, so that definitely, I felt like I was, like, catching up to my peers, like, socially in that way. And then the other
yeah,
way, um, my childhood impacted me was I had a very narrow I was shown a very narrow path to success and a very narrow definition of success.
Right.
Speaking of like definition, yeah,
Yeah.
I was not encouraged to explore creatively. I mean, I played classical piano, but that's really just um, like my parents just thought that would help me get into a good college.
Right.
Like it was
So
a
that
resume
so that was
builder.
sort of seen as a they saw that as a hobby, as something
Yes. But I
not
got
not a career thing.
It's
oh, yes,
still
for
do.
sure, still do, yeah.
Oh,
Oh man, if you could, I wish you could be on the phone sometimes when we like tell her mom news about the band or something. That it's just so it's so
No, it's always just, cool, and then,
like
like, the
we
yeah.
could like we could like win a Grammy and
yeah,
like call her mom up and be like, hey, we just won a Grammy, and she'd be like, okay,
yeah.
so what's for dinner?
Yeah,
Like,
literally.
I tell you, I could totally empathize with that. Yeah, like whenever I was doing stuff that like my dad or mum didn't understand, especially my mum. Like my dad would sort of try to understand, but never. A lot of things didn't really. But mum would be exactly the same. Okay, or
Yeah.
if there was any sign of curiosity, it'd be like, "What's that?"
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right, okay, okay. Let's start
totally.
again. Sorry.
Completely.
Anyway,
No, no, no. Yeah, you get
Absolutely.
it. And it would be sometimes, and it used to be like when I was, when we were younger, it used to be like, okay, but is it like distracting you from your studies? Or like, okay, but like,
mm,
are you getting distracted at work? Yeah, like it was almost
Yeah.
like perceived. So like, I don't always share things with her because I don't want her to, yeah, anyway.
yeah. I know. So there is something in that. I mean, I know, like with my parents, sometimes it felt not that there was, it was just harder to sort of share things because you knew that you'd have to explain everything, and it just felt like hard work
Yeah, it
for
did. And
probably
sometimes
not much reward at the end of it.
yes, and sometimes it's a negative reaction. So I'm like, oh, I
Yeah,
don't know if the reaction's gonna be neutral or negative today. So it's just easier.
yeah. Are you an only child?
No, I
Or
have two younger
you
brothers.
two younger brothers? See, I'm an only child, and
Mhm.
like I always felt like the spotlight was on, and so to go
Yeah.
against their kind of views and things like that was always quite a challenge for me.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that
tougher.
is tougher. You're like the only hope, so to speak,
Yeah.
you
The
know?
poster boy, yes,
Yeah.
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 Come on, you
Oh,
got to do it.
Yeah,
Poster
yeah.
boy, or else the poster that's on the darts board.
Yeah.
If I
yeah.
I've
was
never
going,
thought
if I was
about
doing
that.
things wrong,
Same.
I've never
I
thought about that with
see
only children.
because of my two younger brothers and my youngest brother is kind of he's the baby of the family. Like definitely
mm,
took a little bit longer to figure things out than me and my middle brother. We were just a little bit more independent. So yeah,
mm,
my younger brother because he's like kind of seen more as like the troublemaker, always worrying my parents.
right.
Um, yeah, he takes some of the spotlight away for sure.
Yeah, I think like I was like by my nature, I'm sort of quite introverted. So
Mhm.
and when I was younger, but even more so, I was very shy. So for me, getting that independence when I was a kid was I just didn't do it. As I got into teenage years, then I did and started to because I was classically trained. I played the cello, and I
Oh
was really
Oh,
no
wow.
way!
yeah,
That's
yeah. I
so
did all my exams. Did all my exams. To
Wow.
I finished them when I
cool.
was like 16 or something like that, and
Yes.
I
Wait.
hated it. I
Oh,
hated it. No, I did.
So did
I
you.
was
I
good at I was good at it, but I hated it because I felt like I felt like I was always pushed into it.
I felt the exact same way. Like
Did you?
I did it. I also did my like exams, and then I did a ton of competitions in high school. Like I was
Right. Yeah.
constantly competing because again, winning awards looked better for my college applications. Like it was
Mm,
all like resume building for me, like from my parents. No, totally felt the same way as you. And then I don't know if you felt this way, but yeah, no, it's actually I love meeting like classical musicians when we're in this world because it's very much I still feel like it's Bryce's world. I'm learning to embrace it, but
yeah.
so I don't know if you felt this way, but because I was classically trained, um, I well, a couple of things came out of me being classically trained and transitioning to this band. So one of the things is I just didn't have any exposure to like modern music, and because my
Mm,
parents were Chinese immigrants, like it's not like they grew up listening to the Beatles or something and had it playing.
yeah.
house. Like I just didn't have any exposure to like Western popular culture and rock bands. And so I always had this misguided view that like like modern music is just not very good. Like
Mm,
I was very snobby about it because that's just what I was taught, and I
yeah,
like my world was only classical music, and so
yeah.
like I used to like wrongfully not take Bryce's music, like the music he was writing and his world. I just didn't take it as seriously. I would kind of like,
Mm,
yeah, I just yeah, didn't give it the thought that I should have been giving it, and supporting him as much. Like I just was like, oh, this is the fun thing that you do, cool, yeah.
yeah.
But it's like no classical music.
Yeah, 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 straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
D-
yeah.
no, go on, go on, no, go.
Oh yeah, and then I just like I guess like to finish that story, after I joined Chinese American Band and like started writing more music because this thing was getting more attention, I like realized how nuanced it is. Like
Mm,
when I watch them work in the studio and like when I'm actually like in the process and like seeing all the nuance and like the like what it takes to do this craft. It is really
yeah,
hard. Like it is
yeah,
yeah, I definitely absolutely take it as seriously as classical music now. It's just very different. It's a
Yeah, different
very,
yeah.
skills.
very different skill set, like a different ear, a different approach. Yeah, it's just different.
Does it feel sort of quite kind of liberating and like to sort of open your mind because your creative both your creativities is really vast and you you looks to me like your imagination is just amazing and you just have like this kind of like sort of stuff that you can kind of go into. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm wrong, I
for
don't
me,
know, but no, that's what it feels like, so
yeah,
it
Great.
feels very unrestricted and
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. For me, with the classical background, it's felt very hard.
mm,
So like both
yeah,
hard and liberating. It's felt very hard because I've never written music, and so like in classical, like you're so trained to interpret notes on a page. You're so trained to
yeah,
interpret others' works, and so I was like very visual and so trained to have like a structure, follow a visual thing. So it was very hard for me to just write music off of like chords. And I was like, "But what do I do?" Like
yeah,
moving
yeah,
away from that like structure, it was like it didn't feel liberating at first. It just felt very, very difficult
yeah, frustrating.
and
It's like
frustrating. Yeah.
you're
yeah.
just like, very
I can
frustrated.
Yeah.
totally feel that. Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
I'm yeah, because like we'd like sit down together, and I'm used to just working with a lot of creative people where they've exercised this muscle more, and you
Yeah.
kind of like I'm sure you've experienced, you go back and forth and you like throw ideas and bounce
yeah,
ideas. And it was like hard to pull ideas out of her at first
yeah,
because just so
I just
so
didn't know what
many
to do.
yeah, which is but it's been fun watching her be become liberated in that way
It's
yeah,
gotten
of yeah, just kind of like it's feels so counterintuitive sometimes to be creative because sometimes it's like you it's like, oh, like try this, but also you need to not try. Like by trying you're almost blocking in a way. It's more like
yeah,
letting go of it's
Mhm.
more like a let feeling of letting go so that things can come to you or something.
yeah.
I'm not sure.
Mhm.
No, it's
But
right. I mean, I started, or was it last year, the year before? Like year before last. I did a sort of short graphic design course. I've never done any graphic design before, but I was interested in it. I kind of love like with music. I love all the visuals, all the
yeah,
artwork and stuff like that. But I'd never really been able to do it. I never thought of myself like that. And so I did the short course, and then started when I started doing the writing for myself. I put all the visuals to start putting the visuals together, and I found out who I was inspired by, and it was it's really weird. Yeah, I totally just going back to your point about how you kind of like let yourself go, and sometimes you don't know where it's coming from. When you're
yeah,
putting a design together, it just happens.
just happens.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
really weird. It's really weird. It's like why that doesn't work, and then suddenly something will come to you, and it's like, yeah,
feels
that
right. Yeah,
visually feels good
yeah,
to me.
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what band it was, but I remember hearing a band describe it as like this kind of visual metaphor of a river and
Mm,
how yeah, you feel like it's natural to kind of swim against the river, try to swim to
yeah,
shore. But the best thing you can do is just kind of let go and let the river take you where it needs to. And I feel like
where it
that's
needs to.
yeah, that process of just letting go, and then you end up yeah with your design
Yeah.
or which is I guess the end of the river or I'm not sure.
Oh, no, well, yeah. So, like for you, Bryce, like kind of like when you were growing up, what sort of crowd or people or environments did you sort of gravitate towards? What did you feel like, kind of like an affinity to?
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
that wasn't a loaded question at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know at
yeah.
all.
because
Just like yeah, just like thinking of
yeah,
yeah, the contrast between the two of us is always funny to us in
yeah,
general. Uh, but yeah, I definitely gravitated towards art, artists, musicians,
Mm,
um, and also like gamers. Um,
gaming nerds, because he's
yeah,
always been a
yeah,
gamer.
very like
right. Okay.
very like nerdy type, not like academic nerdy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Big difference between
yeah.
academic nerdy and like Dungeons and Dragons nerdy.
Like, he played Dungeons& and
Um,
Dragons in junior high, like, which is our, like he was,
Wow.
like, 12 or 13, yeah.
yeah,
Like
Wow.
very
like,
Right.
original Dungeons& and Dragons fan, but
Wow.
now it's become a little more mainstream,
yeah, it's
yeah.
become it's so weird for it to become mainstream because I feel like I was like cast yeah, I feel it was like a social suicide to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was
Yeah, when we're
a kid. Anyways, but yeah, I think I just hung out with more delinquents, um, and yeah,
Was that
I
what?
just it was just more of a free. I was much more of a free kid. I think when I
Yeah.
was in high school compared to Anne, like I just
Mhm.
my
Your
my
parents.
responsibilities were pretty minimal. I mean,
Mm,
my dad definitely pounded into me like hard work. I think that was thank
mm.
God because I think if it wasn't for that, I would be a total mess, more of a mess.
Yeah, but his parents, like you didn't really have a lot of rules. Like, it was the total opposite,
Yeah,
like,
they
household environment. Like, you were just very
yeah
free to
I
do
got
whatever. Yeah.
yeah I got my independence very early. I feel,
Mm,
um, and yeah, just grew up in a space where I think I was free to think and kind of
yeah.
do as I
Yeah.
pleased.
Do as you please. Yeah. So,
Uh,
how did that? When you kind of getting into music and I guess the kind of confidence, to do that, to sort of make that step. Was that quite natural for you?
yeah, it was. I think I kind of all simultaneously became interested in like the technology of it of like the recording process. I
Mm,
started to buy an interface and like
mm,
monitors and stuff when I was 16 and
yeah.
uh, yeah, simultaneously started getting interested in songwriting. And I mean, I had been playing instruments for most of my life. I started with piano like Anne, except
Mm,
for it was more jazz based. And yeah, it just felt natural. I think I just became kind of obsessed with all aspects of the process, which I think is like dangerous, um, because it feels like yeah, there's like uh, a never ending pool of things to do and to
things to
learn.
do. Yeah. And
Um,
were you self taught with everything?
I took piano lessons for I guess like 5 years
Mm,
from the age of 7.
yeah.
Um, and a couple guitar lessons, and then I played like saxophone and clarinet
Wow.
in school, in middle school and high school, and so uh, yeah, I have like a very just basic knowledge, and
Yeah.
but yeah, no like university.
I would
Knowledge.
love to play saxophone. I
Oh,
love the saxophone.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
an
me too.
amazing instrument.
And
Beautiful instrument.
yeah,
It
I'm
really is.
very bad. Are you, would you say you're more of a tenor guy or an alto or a soprano or a, baritone?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do
I
you have
would
a preference?
say I would say tenor.
Oh, tenor,
Yeah.
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 Oh,
Yeah,
tenor
yeah,
just kinda hits the soul.
Yeah.
yeah. Although I
Yeah.
do remember there was oh no, was it an alto sax? Is the alto sax, is that the one that looks like a clarinet?
I
Is
think
that the
that's
alto?
Soprano.
soprano.
Yeah,
Is that the soprano?
Mhm.
yeah.
There's a band called Divide and Dissolve, and extremely loud, like really thunderous,
Mm,
deep doom. But then Takaya sort of intersperses it with this yeah, sort of soprano sax, and it's
whoa.
like really sort of like quite high pitched. And it's so haunting. It provides this like sort of haunting sort of sax, and then this like crushing guitar. Honestly, it was probably one of the loudest gigs I've ever been to. It was
Really?
when they played here last year, about a year, just under a year ago, and it was just amazing, just
Mm,
in a live setting, sort of seeing that. So yeah, but it's clearly different to the sort of regular sax, but just like the range within that is just within the sax
yeah.
family is just beautiful.
Sounds like it was one of those concerts where you lose some hearing.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I mean, even with I have to wear earplugs all the time
Yeah.
now. I kind of noticed at the start of COVID a bit of like tinnitus starting from.
Mhm.
So I started, talk about when the horse is bolted. I started then wearing earplugs.
Yeah.
But even at that one, it was, and these ones, I spent some money on them to get fairly good ones. It was still punishing.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
like I need to kind of like step back a little.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love live music for that reason, though. It's so loud, but
It's
it's
there's something
so
to it,
bad.
isn't there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so bad for our ears, though.
That was something I don't know if you felt this way, like when you coming from playing cello. Um, I had to get used to how loud rock music is because
Yeah.
it's just not like that at a classical concert.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because yeah, you're right. I mean, I mean, part of the reason that, well, see, I was playing sort of classical, um, but what I was listening to was probably at the other end of the spectrum.
Mm.
It
Gotcha.
really was. It
I
really
love that.
was. And
Amazing.
I I didn't have the wherewithal as kind of what 12-year-old to see that the two could exist in the same world. It was, and eventually it was just my love of rock music that kind of won out,
Yeah.
and the cello was never opened. I went and bought one again about 3 years ago. I'd never picked one up for like over 30 years. Went and bought one.
Wow.
Felt like I had some unfinished business with it.
Yeah.
It was really like such a weird feeling. It was just
Yeah,
like when I picked it up, the first time I picked one up for that length of time, just all these sort of memories came back.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
bonkers.
Were any of the memories good? Or
Yeah. The ooh, it, it it felt like there were memories that I needed to kind of face again, I suppose.
Mhm.
I wanted to. I think it's a beautiful instrument. I really do. It's just like an amazing sound. But the way that I had to learn it just sort of affected my my relationship with it. But now I'm kind of free of that. I can see
Yeah.
it now. How sort of beautiful it is. So the memories, yeah, they were. It was quite emotional, actually. It was quite emotional.
yeah,
Yeah. That's beautiful.
it's really
Yeah,
sweet. Aw. You know,
but
Yeah.
I often think about and kind of wish that there were more resources for just kids to learn music in different ways.
mm,
You
yeah,
know, I feel like we mostly, I mean, there's learning it classically, which is often the case, or in
mm,
school. And school is still very structured, and which is good. I mean, you need some structure in order to learn
yeah,
technique and how to read music, and but I feel like there's not too much emphasis on songwriting ever, or production, or I guess you get like improv from jazz a bit,
Yeah,
but even that's a little different than
yeah.
um, writing songs and stuff. And
I
yeah, I'm
guess
curious. Yes, yeah,
I
go
guess
ahead.
in a kind of industry, where there's a kind of institution around, jazz, for example, as an industry around an institution around music and stuff like that, and sort of shifting again, talking about mindset, shifting mindsets. I mean, I was talking to a musician the other day, and she'd studied at a like a contemporary jazz. I think it
Mm,
was like I think was it a degree or a master's, and she found it restrictive. The way that jazz was taught. And I think there's this kind of gatekeeping as well, isn't there? Of around the either the syllabus, the way of teaching, how far you can push things, which is kind of bizarre when you have jazz, which, as you say, is very kind of
yeah.
improv and
Yes. Agreed.
about pushing boundaries.
Yeah, that's
That's interesting to hear.
yeah, that is.
Yeah,
What is it? The Royal College of Music? That's a big.
Yeah, is that the big one in the
Is that the big
UK?
one?
yeah,
Kind of like the
yeah,
Juilliard version of the.
Oh, I wonder if they have like songwriting, or more like modern production classes.
yeah. I don't know. It
Uh,
would be interesting to sort of see that and to learn from different learning methods,
yeah, yeah,
because not everybody responds to traditional ways of teaching.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
You know, so talk me through if you can remember, like the first sort of live show that you played.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
What was tell me, like, how you were feeling when all that was sort of.
My God. Well, Bryce didn't even like. So you remember in the beginning, he was like, "I just want you to sing on it because you pronounce Chinese better." So I like literally thought this was just gonna be a one-time thing where he borrowed my voice for one song, and then
Yeah,
it became like a handful of songs, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Oh, by the way, I booked us a show." Like without talking to me about it. Like it was not a,
yeah.
it was not a speak about
That was my bad.
performing
Yeah,
live. It was
yeah.
just we
She gives me shit about that weekly,
because
which I deserve.
it was so shocking.
Yeah,
You know?
it's like it's funny because it really showed how I forget and forgot that she's like never done the band thing, because in my head, like, I mean,
yeah,
you're in a
I
band,
hear
you
you.
put music out, like the natural next step is to play a show. It feels so
Yeah.
like, that's just what you do. And yeah,
And
but
Yeah.
it's so
And so I was terrified, and I
oh
have,
my god.
yeah, I've never sang live.
Oh my god.
Exactly. I mean, I have, like, stage experience from playing classical piano, but it's
Mm,
so different. Like, as you
different.
know,
Yeah.
when you play classical piano on stage, um, your only worry is the repertoire. Like, you just focus
Mm,
on the repertoire, you don't think about the audience, like, in fact, you try to imagine the audience away.
yeah.
Uh yeah, it's very,
You're
single-minded.
looking at the keyboard, you're looking at the music, and you're kind
Exactly.
of in your world, aren't you?
Exactly, and
Yeah.
so, in a band, like, I mean, I've been because as an audience member at shows, I knew that, like, you have to entertain, like, you're entertaining an audience, you're trying to, get their energy up, you're building, like, a
Mm,
relationship with your audience. Because I always enjoyed concerts where I, like, felt a connection with the singer, with the band,
mm,
and then I had also the other thing I was really nervous about was I had been to plenty of shows, and maybe you have as well, where I'm feeling bored. Like I'm kind of in the
mm,
audience, I'm kind of just waiting for the set to be over because it's
yeah.
just, yeah, like low energy. Yeah, not into the music. And so I never
Yeah.
wanted our audience to feel that way. So I was like super nervous about like, I don't want us to be a band like that. So
Yeah.
like I really wanted to make sure that like I was good at the entertaining part.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Extremely nervous about that. Um like that very first show because I was so nervous, I like wrote a lot of notes to myself. Like I like we would usually have like a set list and I would write in the set list like notes on what banter to say in between songs. I'm like, okay, Anne, you should like make this joke here and
Yeah.
we're back to the structure, you know, the structure of her upbringing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hang on. Just hang on. Page 17.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah,
That is
does somebody have an eraser? Yeah,
I
totally.
was so nervous. And when I'm super nervous, I just like to be extra prepared because it just eases
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
anxiety and
Yeah.
it just makes me feel less stressed. But even like with all the notes that I wrote, um, I have to go to the bathroom a lot, like when I'm really nervous. So I
Yeah.
remember like 15 minutes before the show, I like probably peed like 10 times and I kept asking Bryce, do I have time for one more pee? Like
I'm like, there can't be any pee left.
It's like Bryce, you go out, you entertain them. Just 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm surprised you haven't like had a pee break in the middle of a set yet.
Yeah.
That'll be like our thing. Like you'll go bathroom while we mid set.
But it ended up I mean, I was so nervous, but it ended up being, like, way more fun than I thought it would be,
Right. Yeah.
and, it and, like, back to when we were talking about liberating, I found like, it's been extremely liberating to perform in a band rather
Mm.
than classical music. Um, Part of it is you just don't have to be or I feel like I don't have to be as careful with, like, hitting on the notes or, like,
Yeah.
phrasing because it's so loud, and so, like, no one
Yeah.
can hear if you, like, miss a note here or there, like, in classical music, it's so exposed, and so
Yeah.
you can hear every, like, mistake, but yeah, in rock music, you can be a little
Yeah, just
sloppy and
You can, yeah, you can be sketchy. You can do what you want.
Yeah.
There is something in that actually. I think that it kind of like I kind of quite like, you know, if you know a band makes mistakes or if you know to kind of don't hit the chords. I mean, it kind of shows that you know they're human. You know, and
Yeah.
I just kind of like it. You know.
yeah, it feels rock and roll, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just been super fun, like, I've
Yeah,
really
she's
loved
really
it,
a yeah,
yeah.
and she's a really great performer too. I think it's funny
Yeah.
because she's always been really good at public speaking,
Yeah.
um, and
I've had to do a
it's
lot of, like, I feel like presentations at work, like, a lot of corporate presentations where I have to, like,
Mm,
speak in front of
okay.
a lot of people, yeah,
yeah.
anyway.
So she's like kind of honed that skill of public speaking, and I feel like it actually translates really well to you know a
Yeah.
live band where yeah
Yeah.
you have to speak with people and
Yeah, make eye contact, I really try to make eye contact and, like, smile at people and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
just
mean, I think that, you know, all of you know, when you can do that, I mean, it all really sort of helps in that kind of relationship, doesn't it? You know, with you. I mean, so you know, some artists can be very standoffish and do that very well, and it doesn't
yes
affect
Yeah.
things.
for
But you
sure
know, I think you know where you do have that relationship, you know, because I mean, you know, also there's so much music out there. There's so many musicians out there that you know, I personally sort of think, you know, establishing that rapport with your fans is kind of quite important.
yeah definitely
It's fun. I like it more than the writing part.
Yeah,
It's
the actual sort of performing.
yes
Yeah,
she
I
thrives
like it
live which is great
I like
because
it
I
more.
feel like I thrive
Yeah.
less so it's a good
He likes the writing part a lot more. You
yeah
like
Are,
being
I'm
in
a,
the
are
I'm a
you
studio boy.
yeah.
how do you how do you feel about the shows? It not
Yeah.
as comfortable.
It's weird because I get less nervous than Anne
Mm,
does.
Oh, I'm so nervous before the show.
So I feel more comfortable, I think, but I think I'm just honestly maybe not as good of a performer. I
mm,
think I think I can play my instrument fine and stuff, but I have trouble kind of like getting out of my body. Um,
right. Yeah.
you know, I think
He's a little more stiff
yeah, I'm
on
a little more
stage.
stiff and
Yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel like I need to bring the energy and, like,
yeah, she's very good at
walk
like
around, fill up the stage. Yeah.
yeah, she's very good at kind of letting
Interesting.
her guard down and I think I'm
Yeah.
a bit more guarded when I'm on stage, and so, um,
But
yeah,
that is that because I remember reading um reading an interview with Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, you know, and her saying about, you know, basically the you know, kind of on stage, She wears, very flamboyant costumes. She's a flamboyant performer off stage, like really shy and very socially awkward. Doesn't want to really sort of speak to anybody because she feels
Mm.
very, very shy. So there's almost like a sort of dual persona.
Oh, that is interesting.
That's
I think back in the day, I think probably the booze sort of helped on stage, but that's a
Yeah,
different
yeah,
story,
yeah.
But you can
That's
kind of see, I can totally see that where either working both ways, either the stage is a kind of release, or the other way where it's perhaps somewhere you don't feel as confident. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really
that is
interesting.
really
I
interesting.
yeah, I definitely feel the release a lot more in the studio and
Mm,
writing. I think I totally, yeah, get a release there, and yeah, on the stage, I guess a little more shackled.
yeah,
Well,
I
you
almost feel like you treat performing live as like, well, this is just part of the deal. Like I have to do this because this is part of
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but like
Not that I don't enjoy it. I
yeah.
really do enjoy it. It's especially our show. Like our show is so fucking crazy and weird and wacky. And it's it's a
I was, do
Because I
you know? Yeah, go on.
oh yeah,
Sorry, Anne.
sorry. Yeah. Oh no, I just really quickly because I was like trying to think of ways that like if I were in the audience, like that I want to be entertained, like or think it
Mm,
would be fun. So I was like, it'd be so fun if we like threw things at the audience, just like at sports games,
yeah,
like what can we throw things that's like kind of cheap. I don't want to throw away t-shirts and stuff. And so like we got these like little plushies, these like boba t-shaped plushies that we throw into
yeah.
the audience at every show, and then I teach them how to dance at every
yeah.
show.
We have
That's
like dancing.
brilliant.
We
Yeah.
have like
That's
dancing. I
brilliant.
mean, we really like. I'm sure you know the Flaming Lips.
Yeah, yeah,
But like just kind of their like wacky theatrics that they have on stage, I think is
yeah.
big inspiration for this band. And like,
It's
um,
incredible.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
love that. I love that idea.
yeah, it
Yeah,
feels
it's
like it
So
fun.
cool.
fits the band well. And
Yeah.
and honestly, I think like being able to embarrass yourself in front of an audience, especially
Yes.
for me as someone who is more guarded, like being in this band opposed to a serious one, I think is very helpful for me because um, yeah, if we can embarrass ourselves right away, I think the audience really relaxes.
Yeah, and I think
Feels
I think it sort of shows confidence. Shows
yes,
your actual confidence in yourself that you can go up there and, "Okay, yeah, I'm
totally.
gonna do this. It's whatever."
Yeah, that's so true. And then
And
and then the audience feels comfortable to
Yes.
yeah,
to be to move more
Yeah.
or feel less
yeah,
embarrassed.
I feel less
yeah.
self.
I was going. Do you know? It's interesting you say that because I was going to ask you about how you feel about um with either your music, your live shows about taking risks. Whether you feel that you sort of take risks, take more or less. But it sounds like you kind of throw caution to the wind anyway, and just
Yeah,
kind of
we're
get on with it.
we're
The wackier, the better.
yeah, our drummer is always like
I know.
kind of making fun of us because like we'll be like, oh, what if we do this? And
It'd be
he'll be like,
embarrassing.
guys, we have enough theatrics. Like,
Like
relax,
you want
chill out.
another one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like okay, we have a dancing bear, we have a dancing dumpling, we have this and this one.
He's in a much more serious band, and he like is still like a pretty serious musician. So I think he's sometimes a little embarrassed by us. Yeah. Like literally. Yeah.
Or being in a traveling theatre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, he always jokes with us like after a show that we play or something. He'll anytime there's like a we play a show where there's kids in the audience,
Because kids love it,
kids
I
really
bet.
really
I
enjoy it,
bet.
and
love the plushies, a little dancing bear.
he's
Yeah.
always like, "Oh, well, I guess we're becoming the Wiggles,"
Like,
and
yeah. Which is fine by
we're,
us.
we're
We're
just like,
like, great.
You're like, oh yeah, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
He's like, oh
exactly,
my god.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
yeah.
Oh my. Oh, brilliant. Well, listen, it's been fabulous talking to you. Thanks so much. It's just been such a great laugh, and yeah, such a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's nice to meet you and chat.
Thank you.